Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Fullfunnel B2B Marketing podcast in 2022. I mentioned behind the scenes that I was waiting for this episode for 3 months. So today we have Kyle Lacy, SVP of Marketing at SalesTech. Also, you can see Steve Ward here. Steve was at our podcast exactly a year ago, but we spoke at that time about account-based marketing. Today, we are going to chat about slightly different topic, but I know that most of you are very curious, are very interested how to build a fantastic marketing team. Honestly, I'm a big fan of Lessonly. Now it's a part of SalesTech. Guys did fantastic job. And Kyle, what I love about his content, he always talks about how to serve the marketing team and how to make sure that your marketing team delivers, right, produces the results. So I want to discuss this today, how to build a fantastic marketing team. And of course, we'll touch at the end of the conversation, the Lessonly growth, right? What helped Lessonly to grow, the main takeaways, etc. So stay tuned, join the conversation. And Kyle, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Steve.
So I want to kick it off with one question, right? You worked more than 5 years as VP of Marketing. From your point of view, what are the most important skills of VP of Marketing?
Oh man, number one is empathy. I think that's you've got to understand how to be empathetic towards your team. I saw Tara's on the call. I've talked to her about this as well. She's probably the best at this, just to be clear, in terms of marketing leadership. But you've got to have empathy for a group that has to scale orgs at such a high growth rate, especially if you're a venture-backed business. When your team's got to deal with 300, 200, 100, 50% growth, depending on your size, a lot of people are going to have hard times because that's just the reality. So, I had to learn, I can say that because I had to learn that. I had zero empathy walking into the Lessonly role, and we were at 2 million in ARR. And I learned pretty quickly that I needed to develop that as a leader in order to really grow and really to grow the team appropriately. So number one is empathy. Number two is trust. If you are a micromanager, you will never work in a high growth environment ever. I do not care who you are. I think you could say there's some CEOs that are micromanagers that have worked out, but it's been a pain in the ass to work for them. But as a marketing leader, you cannot micromanage. You have to hire people that you trust. And if you hire people that you trust, it's just a easier go at it. It doesn't make it any less difficult. It's easier because you tackle challenges together. So empathy and trust, and then you've got a whole laundry list of things that you need, of course, which we all would throw out there.
And regarding, let's say, these are the soft skills, right? Regarding the practical skills, from your point of view, I'm just talking purely about B2B companies. So let's nail it down, B2B tech companies, right? So regarding the tech skill set, what are the most important skills?
From hard skills, prioritization, I would put in that realm. You will hire a team and you will have the budget, and they will want to do absolutely everything they can possibly do to hit a growth number, to hit a brand goal, whatever your priorities are. And if you don't prioritize budget appropriately, if you're not looking at the right metrics to prioritize appropriately, then your team's going to burn out and you're not going to spend money on the right things. So that's part of the trust element. Like you got to have a team that can look at that. But if you're not looking at the right metrics, and an example is if you walk into high growth, like smaller company, like when I joined Lessonly at 2 million, they were looking at every metric, every funnel metric. We had a scorecard that was 30 cells, 30 cell lengths, right? There's 30 things we were looking at, and I cut it down to 5 because it just does not make sense to look at all of them all the time. And so prioritization is a huge thing. You've got to be good at it, and you've got to take the risk on it too. You can't just ask your team to make those decisions.
What's your favorite framework for prioritization? Do you use any specific, if you take a look at, let's say, popular mental models, right? They talk a lot about Eisenhower prioritization metric. In, let's say, product marketing, we have PI score, right? What's your favorite prioritization framework?
It depends on the business, but for me, Lessonly, it was revenue. That was it. You grew revenue, you could do other things. And Seismic is fairly similar. It's pipeline.
So
go ahead.
Yeah, just correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, you plan, you do the marketing planning, right? You map out all the activities, and then you prioritize them by the impact on revenue, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I think more marketers are doing that, but at the time, which was 2017, we made the decision to do that so that marketing had the seat at the table as we scaled. And we were given if we hit our revenue number, we were given the ability to do other things like launch a clothing line, send a bunch of golden llamas to people that didn't necessarily lead to a positive ROI, but it didn't matter because we were growing. So number one was revenue, second was brand.
And just a practical question in terms of revenue prioritization, right? Let's say you have a long-term campaign, let's say brand campaign, or you want to do something that Steve evangelizes right now, the thought leadership by executives on LinkedIn, and that will definitely have a long-term impact, right? But let's say you have identified some activities that can boost revenue in a short term. Whatever you think that, okay, let's do the virtual summit and we have fantastic speakers line up and that could bring us revenue. So how do you prioritize in this case?
So the way that we approached it at Lessonly was 70% of time, so time and program spend, so headcount and program spend related to generating revenue. 30% was brand, more the long-term play.
Got it. Thank you. So let's move to the more broad question, and then we'll just play with it. How to build a great marketing team.
How to build a great marketing team. Oh, this is all business and stage dependent, right? It's very different depending on where you live and where you're at. For me, we could talk about who, if you're building a marketing team, who you hire first. Mine is copywriter, designer, product marketer, and then demand gen. I feel like if you can, early on at Lessonly, we were hiring people that were like Swiss Army knives, but as we grew, we had to hire more of the practitioner, right? Like product marketing is more of a practitioner, channel marketing is more of a practitioner. Demand gen, you could argue that they're Swiss Army knives. Usually you can hire somebody that's a great copywriter, but has a general idea of how to do some demand gen, right? So the one mistake that I made a lot of mistakes, but the main mistake that I made at Lessonly was not hiring a product marketer soon enough. So I had the opportunity around, I think we're probably around 10 million to hire our first product marketer at 10 million. We had a product marketer, but he was a demand gen person that kind of fell into product marketing because he wanted to learn it. So that wasn't a great way to approach it, honestly. I had the opportunity to hire one at 10 million as we were moving up market, and I decided not to. And I reprioritized that budget towards something else. It made it way more difficult for us to move up market into enterprise, for us to try to figure out different verticals, and for us to figure out how to move into different segments because we didn't have one. And when we hired one in 2019, end of 2019, it made the difference was unbelievable. We actually had use cases and personas and competitive analysis and all this stuff that we hadn't had before that was mostly ad hoc. And I really wish that I would have hired much sooner. That was a really long answer. Sorry. There's a lot to unpack there.
No. That was very good. Let me ask you one practical question. Let's say if company was completely oriented on sales, right? So they established the sales or lead generation approach, whatever we'll call it, right? And they mostly did outbound. Now they want to add marketing operations. Who should be the first hire? Should they hire VP of marketing that will be building marketing team later, or hiring a marketer, right?
A marketer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I have a very strong opinion here. Like a
No,
lot of times early companies hire leaders, VPs that don't know how to actually do the work anymore. And I was lucky enough that I was hired into a role where we already had 8 people on the marketing team at Leslie, like they overinvested. If you're walking into an environment where it's mostly outbound, you need to hire a demand gen person that understands content and search. And that demand gen person should be senior enough to where they can grow into a VP role. You shouldn't hire a VP outright. I think that is a huge. Now you can find the diamond in the rough of the VP that's like, I'll get my hands dirty, blah, 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 but it shouldn't be a benchmark. Do we want to answer questions, or are you?
Yeah, I will call, guys. I'm just, that was really a good one. One question I want just to elaborate on is, let's say if company is going to hire marketer, right? So should it be, like you mentioned, a kind of Swiss Army knife marketer, right? That can execute multiple things in a time, or
yeah. If you're early stage, early stage, it should be more of a Swiss Army knife demand gen person, because you can contract out some of that stuff. That's why I feel like the demand gen person could have a specific skill set, like demand gen with copywriting, or demand gen with organic search, or demand gen with a product marketing background. But it's also dependent on what you sell. If you're product-led growth, like a PLG model, not a sales-led model, I probably would still hire demand gen, but you've got to figure out your freemium model and stuff that's more growth oriented. Then maybe supporting a sales capacity model, which you would be walking into if outbound was the main source.
Thank you. We have our long-term partners from DocShifter, so please go ahead.
Hi, Kyle, and hi, Andre. Good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, my name isn't DocShifter, and I was trying to figure out how I changed it, but
that'd be a cool name, though.
You can call me DocShifter. It's probably the easiest for now. Question for you, Kyle. When we are, I think, in a scale-up phase, I would describe us as a scale-up, not really a startup. We're beyond that. We're growing our marketing team. How do you organize the responsibilities? In other words, do you have people, if you're bringing on board more people, do you have people that are responsible for inbound, outbound? Do you have people responsible for SEO, SEA? How was your experience in splitting those responsibilities? Because we have the Swiss Army knife, but we're now going to more dedication in one or the other area.
Yeah.
So what is that next step? Yeah.
Usually when you have a Swiss Army knife, you usually hire practitioners after that. And I'm using the term practitioner, just somebody that's more focused, right? Because it really depends on your model. Like when I walked into Lessonly, we had a massive inbound revenue model. Like 70% of our revenue was being generated by inbound. So we had to build, I don't know if you can hear my 3-year-old, but we had to build okay, good. You had to build an outbound model in order to support the growth and the scale of the company. If I were walking into a more of an outbound team, I would hire differently. So it's based off of, for me, it's always what's going to generate revenue, and you hire based off of that. And then it's brand. And I think that a lot of marketers do a disservice to brand because they're not hiring designers first, or not first, but at least in your first round of hiring, of building a team. A great designer will have huge impact on your business because there is so much power in great looking visuals and brand and how it feeds into the product. But it's also dependent on the model. Like, is DocShifter sales led? Like you have account executives that call in, like you have to have an account executive?
We do. We are big enterprise focused, long sales cycles.
Yeah.
But everything remote. So our deals are also we minimum size deal is 20K, bigger deals are 200,000 euros. So it's high-end enterprise sales.
Yeah. So I would say your outbound model, you can always get more efficient on the sales capacity model, but you should invest on the inbound side. Like organic search can be a massive driver of deals between 20 and 200K. Yeah, but it's also dependent on the industry and all the stuff that plays into it. But I think what you have to just note as you're scaling is the one channel that worked at the beginning will hit a ceiling. Like your sales capacity model, you've got to be able to offset it with inbound model. You have to have both. What happened at Leslie was we had to scale up an outbound model because our inbound model was starting to hit a ceiling, if that makes sense. So you have to have both inbound and outbound, especially if you're longer deal cycles, it's higher ASP, average selling price.
Yeah.
Just to wrap it up, there is one question. Won't it be a chicken and egg problem if basically hiring a demand gen person versus getting someone senior to get marketing strategy right?
If you found product market fit, which I feel like is when you hire a demand gen person, honestly, which is, I always put it north of 1 million in ARR. You usually need an executor, not a marketing strategist. When you need a marketing strategist is when you start figuring out how to go into sell another product or move into a different segment. Or if you hire, it's a really hard hire, to be clear. Like this is not an easy discussion. If you find a demand gen executor that's had experience, usually they will be able to at least help on the marketing strategy.
Good one.
Has been my experience.
Let's move forward. So my question is, how can you identify a talent?
How can you identify a talent?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, is that like in the hiring process?
Well, I don't know if you were in charge of hiring, but if you were in charge, then it would be absolutely fantastic to hear your experience. If no, then let's say when somebody joined your team, well, how you can identify that HR's brought you a real talent, and now your goal is to help this talent to.
Yeah. So here's how I have always approached it, and it has worked for me because I value a proactive and engaging individual over experience. So the way that we've figured out how to hire at Leslie was at the beginning of the interview process. It didn't matter. Now, okay, just to be clear, if you're a designer, you have to be good at design, and then you add on the proactive stuff. Like you're not going to hire a really bad designer and just hope that they become good at design, right? So there are a few things that does not fit into this model, but we still did it no matter what we were hiring. At the beginning of the interview process, I had a conversation with you and I said, hey, Steve, you're applying for this role. Well, I just want you to know, as you go through this interview process, you are going to have a presentation at the end of the interview process on your first 90 days in the role. And the reason we told people that was because I wanted to see how they built towards that presentation as they were interviewing with different team members as well as peers. And then when they got to the presentation, we made multiple decisions over a first and second place person for a role based off of a presentation at the end of the interview process, because it showed somebody's ability to understand what was going on and communicate that. Ben Battaglia, who's our head of brand and creative, I hired at Leslie. He was the second place person walking in the presentation. And we hired him because of his presentation. And it's one of the better hires that I made at Leslie, and he's still pretty much my right hand. So I feel like talent is very much dependent on somebody's ability to move quickly and be proactive. And again, it depends. Like I'm not going to hire a videographer or designer or product marketer that isn't good at the thing, right? Just depends.
Good, thank you. And also, you write a lot about the appropriate onboarding, right? And that you need to serve new team members to help them to deliver as soon as possible. So what's your approach, right? How to help marketing team to perform, right? To produce the maximum results?
I mean, I think it's dependent. I think it's very much dependent on the hiring process. You've got to find people that fully understand how to work. Outside of that, we spend a lot of time talking about, especially Leslie, talking about productivity, time management, prioritization. Like you shouldn't be working 80 hours a week. I do not care. I do not care what you're doing. You should have a maximum of 50 that you're working really hard at, and you should be able to do that appropriately. I think it's mostly just around prioritization and time management, honestly. And if they can't hit the goal that you put, the OKRs you're putting in front of them, then it was your fault because you didn't hire the right person.
True. One more question. So you mentioned, right, the revenue as a core prioritization metric. So how to make marketing team responsible for revenue? What KPIs should be set, and does it require to change the compensation plan? So how to make everybody be revenue responsible?
Again, this is all with the disclaimer that it depends, right? Like Doc Shifter, much longer sales cycle, so it's going to be a little bit different. I comped our entire marketing team on revenue, even the designers, like videographers, like everybody was comped on revenue creation because half of our deals closed in the same quarter at Leslie. So it's high velocity. Even in an enterprise sales motion, it should be pipeline. So if you look at what should be measured, it is MQL to demo and demo to closed won. And don't tell me that, I don't want to hear anybody say that MQL is a stupid thing to measure, because if you think it's a stupid thing to measure, you did not do lead scoring appropriately. And MQL should be something that could turn into a demo quickly with a high conversion rate. And then you look at the funnel. Enterprise sales motions are a little bit different because you got a lot of attribution stuff that has to happen, but that's a much longer conversation. But for me at Lessonly, we looked at like the traffic side of it, right? Like organic traffic, branded traffic, all the stuff that was more related to the channel. And then it was MQL, demo, closed won. So and we did first touch, direct sourced attribution.
So basically identifying the leading metrics that are leading to revenue, right? The MQLs, the MQLs to demo, etc. And then you just apply your sales cycle length, because sometimes, unfortunately, we can't apply the silver bullets, right, to drastically shorten the sales cycle. If it's naturally 1 year, right? You won't be able to...
and seismic is a little bit different because we have multiple products. We're a cloud, we're a platform. So, we have data around like upsell, cross-sell, and multi-SKU deals and all that stuff that plays into more of a much larger organization. I mean, Seismic's almost 1,500 employees. Lessonly was 250 when we were bought. So it's a very different model. But we're still looking at the same top of funnel metrics, MQL to demo conversion, we do not talk about MQL volume. I do not care about MQL volume. If the MQL volume is going up and the conversion rate's going down, then who cares about how many MQLs you're driving? The MQL to demo or MQL to whatever metric you're using, it should be going up. The conversion rates should be going up, not the volume.
Thank you.
If you could do both, even better.
That's for sure. There is a question from Rob. Rob, please go ahead.
Hey there, this is Rob. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. So hope all is well with all y'all
My
around the world.
favorite, one of my favorite cities in the world.
Oh, great.
I
It's
miss it.
freezing right now, so not so great to be here, but do my best coping at home. So just a quick question. I have a client who's an engineering and product development agency. So they develop hardware products, new first innovation products for VC backed startups as well as SMEs. They've never invested in marketing before. So they brought me in to help them kind of figure out, I have a marketing background, but where to start essentially. They have about $10 million in annual revenue from a very small number of clients. So it's a long B2B sales cycle. And so they just they're out talking to me about how do we get started? And we're talking about in-house versus agency. And also talking about the inbound work that you talked about on SEO, SEM, and demand gen, but also account-based marketing, which kind of brought me to the trenches here a few months ago. So we're just trying to balance where to start. They have some funds, and I don't know what to recommend with them yet. Whether, like you said, do we get a Swiss Army marketer to be their first official hire, or do we do an operator on ABM? Actually, I was thinking to help really get that supercharged. And then the longer tail is maybe get some agencies to help us with the SEO, SEM type work. So I wanted to see what your thoughts were that I could recommend to them. Their budget's probably about 10 to 15K a month, just to kind of give you an idea of.
Does that include headcount?
No, excludes headcount. So that would be an agency number that I kind of got the CEO to kind of give me a range, but we could do a headcount. It wouldn't be like at the director level, I don't think. It'd probably be at the manager or senior manager level if we want to go that route instead of an agency. So would love to kind of get your thoughts of like how you might approach that for them.
Yeah, I know that our wonderful moderator here probably has an opinion here as well, but I would hire the ABM person. You'd get a specific list of target accounts and hire somebody that could actually build a model that could target those specific accounts. You don't need to build, I think eventually you probably need to build a model where you're bringing people in, but if it's a very targeted list and targeted total addressable market, the organic search side of it should be secondary, in my opinion, to getting in front of the top 50 to 20 accounts that actually matter to this firm, to this agency. The in-house to agency thing, I don't have, in a high growth SaaS model, I always go towards having everybody in-house with agency support. I don't think you need to do that for a very targeted type approach that this firm has.
Okay.
If that makes sense. You can use agencies to support that for sure.
I was just thinking, basically they have 30 engineers. There's nobody in marketing there. And so I know I'm speaking a different language when I'm talking to them as a consultant. And so I'm just trying to say, well, maybe someone in-house could help at least navigate a few, and they understand brand and they do understand the value of that, which is great. And we've done a lot of investing last year on that. Great. Which is really good. And I think thought leadership as a product development agency is really important. So that's where I was kind of debating on the inbound and thought leadership content to help them there. But if to your point,
I think that you should build thought leadership into an ABM model. So
okay,
I would go hard on brand, thought leadership, and ABM. Very targeted.
And then on the demand gen, just kind of pause on that first, wait on that and then get.
Yeah, the way to be clear, I haven't actually implemented something like this in what you're talking about, but the way I would approach it would say, hey, we have a targeted list of 30 accounts. I need an agreement between you, CEO, and me that as we generate more revenue from this list of 30 accounts, you're going to give me the ability to increase marketing spend so we can focus on more of the organic approach, but only after I figure out the targeted approach.
Okay, gotcha.
Also keep in mind, there is one more thing about ABM, right? Thought leadership is a part of demand gen process. So anyhow, you must be doing this. That's the first thing. The second one is that as a part of ABM, you'll be doing the activation part, right? You'll be reaching out to these accounts. And if you are doing the thought leadership, and especially if you have diversified content strategy, which means that CEO talks or shares the content that is relevant to CEOs, right? Sales is talking to another department, right? Marketing is talking to another department. You'll be able to connect with multiple buying committee members and create awareness inside the target accounts. And even if the moment won't be right, if when you'll be reaching out, the chances that you'll get a constructive feedback are really, really high. And that's the core difference, right? Doing the cold outreach that was put in a source of ABM, or doing the right ABM, because with the thought leadership, you create the awareness and basically you do the warm up, which is crucial to have success with ABM. So just wanted to drop 5 cents.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Another question from my side, considering 5 years at Lessonly, what were the most surprising moments for you?
Oh man, most surprising moments for me. Let's see. So there's a couple. Number one is the power of direct mail. We did a ton of direct mail, and we did things from like golden llamas to Lego llamas to board games. We did a lot of customized stuff that I cannot, if you have the budget to do it, you like customized direct mail is massive, because you don't need to send somebody another t-shirt or Yeti. Everybody has t-shirts. Like I have a closet full of t-shirts. I don't need any more t-shirts. The second thing was if you focus as you're scaling up, if you spend a lot of time focusing on the experience of the sales process, you can land deals that you have no business selling. So I'll give you an example. So Lessonly, we landed our first 7-figure deal. We had no business landing it. We were, it was an enterprise deal. It was our first enterprise deal. And we handled the sales process the way, in an empathetic way, and focused more on the experience of the buyer than trying to sell the product, because we knew the product worked and we know that it could benefit the situation. So an example is we had an event for a lot of the champions to buy this product out in Seattle. And we were given the opportunity, hey, you can spend up to $100 for each person for swag if you want. We said, okay, great. Our competitors bought Patagonia jackets with the logo on it, which is cool. Everybody likes Patagonia, right? We went and bought $100 gift cards to Donors Shoes, which gives, you can give to teachers within school organizations to buy stuff for kids. And the whole concept was, hey, we can help you teach and learn. We can help you teach your teammates through learning, right? That's what Lessonly sold at the time. We want you to help kids learn in your school district. That's like, just that helps through the entire process. So for me, the surprising experience, the surprising part of all this was how much the story of the company matters to the strategy. My favorite quote is, the company story is the company strategy, from Ben Horowitz. If you have to differentiate by the story you tell. And Lessonly, I was so surprised on how it wasn't easy, but how well it worked when we didn't necessarily fit in a category. So as you start scaling companies and growing, spend time thinking through the experience of the buyer, thinking through how you're telling the story of the company, what's going to differentiate you. And it's not just that you've been around for a while and you have great productivity percentages or whatever you sell. It's like what humanizes your brand. And that was a huge learning for me, is that Lessonly had the ability to humanize, and we won because of it.
Love your story. Actually, we at Fullfunnel, we are huge fans of direct mail. This is something that we are doing to generate pipeline for ourselves. We do it with every single client. And one of the funniest stories I had, when we were working with one software development company, which is a commodity market by itself. There are like thousands of software development companies in the world, but let's leave aside the strategic work that we have done. We were naturally there reaching out to two roles, right? To CEO and CTO, and try to basically sell their services. So what I have done differently with them is that we were reaching out to HRs, and these were HRs of mid-sized and enterprise companies. And the reason why, because HRs are in charge of hiring the developers, and they need to bring the talents, and they're always in rush, especially if there are, let's say, tight deadlines on product development, right? So what I have done, it worked really like a magic. We purchased customized dolls, or let's say statues of Superwoman. And there was a copy all aligned about this, that like in HR, you are like a superwoman, you need to deal with a bunch of stuff, and also bring the right talents to your CTO, so they won't be later blaming you for bad candidates, etc., etc., etc. And just from that campaign, we were reaching out to 30 accounts, and we got, just from HR, we got 7 meetings that 2 of them were later converted into contracts, and the, let's say, the ACV is around 500K.
And it is too easy to send a Yeti to somebody. Now, you got to understand scale and all that stuff. Let's put that aside. But we did a targeted campaign at Leslie where we sent a lockbox to somebody, the champion, and we sent the code to their boss. So they actually had to go talk in order to figure out how to open it, and it helped connect on Leslie. Now, it had nothing to do with the product. It just helped us open doors. Yeah, you got to have fun with all this stuff as long as you have the resources to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, because B2B doesn't mean boring to boring, right?
Definitely. You and I agree. And, here's when you know you've won, is if you have people requesting the swag. Like we launched a clothing line called Ollie Llama, which is our llama mascot at Leslie called Ollie, olliellama.co. And we had prospects requesting gift cards to buy the swag. You can't pay for that. If you do it appropriately, you will win because you're being more creative than a competitor.
Absolutely. While we move forward to another question, before we'll wrap up the conversation, I want to ask your feedback, guys. How do you like the session? Was it valuable? Did you get any insights? Just let me know in the comments. Curious to hear your feedback. And while you are typing, I want to ask you a practical question, Kyle. So in your About Me section on LinkedIn, you say that B2B should copy B2C. So I really want to touch it. What exactly they should be copying from B2C, I mean B2B companies, and why?
Let's get a little bit even more granular than B2C. I think D2C, direct to consumer. Direct to consumer lives and dies by their website experience. You should live and die by your website experience as a B2B company. If it's really hard to use, if your load time's slow, you're going to kill an organic search anyway. You need to cater to the experience of the prospect or visitor that's coming to your site. If your site's hard to use, you got a problem. That's why I talk about consumer, because consumer has to be great most of the time. They have to be great on the experience, right? There's a reason why Delta Airlines has an amazing mobile app. It's because I use it all the time when I'm flying, right? So, it's hard to do. It's a long process, but if we're going through a bunch of stuff at Seismic right now to kind of reinvent or evolve the way that we think about brand and the experience. And we look at consumer brands. We look at D2C websites. We do not go to look at our competitors' sites. Who cares, right? I mean, you can if you want. You're just going to be replicating something that's already been seen. So user experience is the main reason why I say, and then, their ads and commercials and all that are more fun.
Got it. Thank you. And the last question that is coming from my side, you mentioned in one of your posts that there are 2 metrics mostly ignored by B2B companies. So the first one is net dollar retention, correct? And the second one is rep onboarding. Well, you said also that the net dollar retention is more significant growth level than net new revenue. So from your point of view, why would marketers have more impact on the bottom line if they will help reps, right?
At a certain stage of growth, net dollar retention is actually it grows faster, right? Like if especially in enterprise sales, if you have multiple SKUs, if you can sell into your customer base, it's cheaper. If you can expand your customer base in terms of revenue, it's cheaper. As you grow as a SaaS company, it's going to come a point where net dollar retention is the primary number that you need to look at in order to raise money, right? It should be over 120%. Rep onboarding is more sales capacity. It does not matter how much demand you generate. If your account executive team cannot keep up with it, you're going to fail. And a lot of times marketers don't even think about it. But if your headcount capacity and your hiring capacity is behind on the sales side, you're going to get killed on the revenue side for demand because they're not going to be able to work the deals. This is completely different from like product led, right? Where you only need, you build sales teams as you move up market, like the product should sell itself. So I think we're right in like the change management stage of this, where product led has become more of a conversation, but we're still a long ways off from that. So that's why rep onboarding is so important.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us today, for asking great questions, for the engagement in a Zoom chat. One more probably question from me. If you guys love this session, please make a short tweet about this with like core insights or ideas that you got from this session, or LinkedIn post, or whatever you prefer, and tag me and Kyle. I will really appreciate it. Kyle, thanks a lot for joining us today. Finally, sharing all this insights.
That's completely my fault.
Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us today. We are going with that routine that every Thursday we'll be hosting the live episodes for you. We'll have more guests in the next few weeks. So stay tuned and make sure to follow Kyle on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.